I guess I'm starting to believe more into fate and things, that things just align and they'll come your way. Granted, you're looking for them.
What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to another episode. As you can tell by the lights, as you can tell by this nice little vibe, it's been a while since we did this, but we are back with nightly discussions. To the side of us, we have this amazing soccer player as well as an enlightened individual. Would you like to introduce yourself, though?
Hello, my name is Christian, and you didn't have to butter me up that much. I'm not that big of a deal. Yeah. So my name is Christian Watson. I'm a Mario's friend. I actually want to go into how I met you, which is like really important, I think, for this. If I'm not mistaken, the very first time I ever talked to you was when we'd go to the park, correct? If I'm not mistaken.
It was through Ricky and Tony.
Yeah, and it was just like, it was like a casual thing, and who knows, it would turn into this. Like I said, life works in mysterious ways.
We were talking a little behind the scenes, and we're figuring out, we want to go unscripted as usual for these nightly discussions. But the topic that came to mind was, again, predestination. If you guys didn't see the episodes, highly recommend checking out these 2 episodes. They were so good. We just couldn't make just one. So unscripted, we got it. What's your opinion?
Well, like we were discussing, I've recently had a shift in perspectives. Funny enough, that goes with the title of this podcast. And I've always been one of those people that, I used to think fate was a load of BS, and that we were like, what we decide to do in the moment is what happens. Nothing was predetermined. And I feel like over the course of these last few weeks, I guess I'm gonna go ahead and say this like in air quotes, I've been manifesting things, and they've just been coming my way. And it almost feels like they were fated, because it's like I've really been trying to push these things forward, and they have.
When you say you've manifested things, what do you mean by that?
So, okay, I'm one of those people that I think I always rely on guidance, from others. Like I like to obviously incorporate myself, be in my thoughts, but I also know that, an outsider's perspective is important to, like, not even just compare it to mine, but it's good to see everybody's side of something. And I guess I've just been really open to trying new things, and like just being really open about conversations and other people. And, like, people have come my way. Like, I have friends that I guess I would have never talked to. We're starting to, like, I guess, start a new friendship, and things are going pretty good in that sense. Like, I'm starting to bring new energy into the area.
New energy, like a new environment. You want to bring your new self, you would say.
Yeah, like I feel like it was just time for me to do something a little different out of the comfort zone.
Definitely. Like, I talked to people about the podcast, and then new people with the podcast. Mm-hmm. This is very uncomfortable for me. I love it, but at the same time, it takes a lot of energy being able to talk, to be able to lead, to be able to come up with these conversations, because these topics aren't just something that can come up randomly. Well, personally they do, but after reading it, after doing some research on different topics, I'm like, hey, that's a great idea. Why are things going the way they are? Can we find a different alternative? Can we provide a new perspective?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
I think we can. We just got to be open to it, because obviously we have our own, like, we have our own thoughts and feelings, and then, like, somebody, like I said, from the other side of the spectrum gives you theirs, and you're like, whoa, here's the clash.
Very true. And speaking of perspectives, I know working at a campsite, so behind the scenes, I'm working at a campsite right now, and there's about 50 of us that are working with each other, fit new perspective, new minds, new thoughts and ideas, which is great. With all those new ideas, sometimes come close people who don't have the confidence, or people who have a hard time opening up with new ideas. Personally, myself, I know I struggle with speaking up about certain ideas. How would you say we'll be able to provide a new perspective? Or do you think people are okay with, it's okay for people to stand their ground with what they believe?
Yeah, and I'm glad you touched on that right now. I just think that you have to be mindful, even though you can openly say what it is you feel. I think it's important to, before you just throw it all out there, I like to hear people out first. And I'm like, okay, you know what? Let me. I actually would love to consider your point. Hopefully, I hope you're right. And then there are times where there is a clash in life perspectives, like you say, and I guess I start to see, hey, maybe I'm in the wrong. And before I'm like, oh yeah, I'm wrong. I'll really think to myself, okay. Uh, for example, I'm gonna give you a quick one that I think it's a pretty easy one. So actually, it's funny. A lot of people can probably relate to this. So I live with my grandparents, and they're such by the book people. And I think it's just an elderly mindset where it's like they've always done everything by the book, and they see kind of the things that we do as our generation is unorthodox. And it's very hard to find that medium and that common ground because, like I said, it's literally a shift in like two different time eras of time. And sometimes I really have to sit down and be like, okay, let me see where they're coming from, because, like I said, they were brought up a different way. They have a certain way of thinking. They're not as open-minded as I am, I'd say. But at the same time, there are times where I can be really close-minded to them. And like I said, it's that fight for common ground, and to where like it can actually become a discussion rather than an argument.
That's a big. So what would you say? You mentioned a great point: discussion and argument.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a big shift.
Okay. Would you say it's okay to have an argument?
I think it's okay. Like, I think as long as the argument doesn't get out of hand, like you can debate between two people, no issues. Especially if you have opposing views, politics. I don't even get me started with that, but like you can have active open debates. But I think that the more like you throw yourself into an argument, like sometimes it can come off as wrong, and then that's when it shifts to like, oh, this has now become, it's like an escalation where they feel like you've disrespected them in a way, or you didn't take them into account in a way, and you're like blowing them off. And I think that's what I try to avoid in all conversations. I just don't like to blow people off. Like, even if I don't think you're right, I'll still try to give you time. I'll try to tell you, hey, okay, I understand that, but I still feel this way.
Very true. And you would say, sorry to cut you off, and you learn something new. It maybe not be the right information, though. You learn why certain people think a certain way or they behave a certain way.
Mm-hmm. Also, another thing that you were touching on is not being afraid. Like, a lot of people, I know so many people, including for myself for a time, had social anxiety. Like, it was really hard to go out and like you said, find people like they say to talk to. You're just like, oh my god, are they gonna, like, if I mention this, are they gonna think of me a certain way? And I felt like once I got over that, and I guess I became more comfortable in my own skin.
Yeah.
That went away, and that's what allows me to do things like this.
And people, it's surprising. So as kids, we grow up being told what to say, what not to say. Mm-hmm. As we get older, we become self-aware, and then we become nervous because we don't want to be wrong. We grow up being told, no, this is how we're supposed to speak, or unfortunately, what not to say, and we're never told what we can say or what we're able to say or why we're not able to say certain things. It becomes like a little cycle, and it's not until we become an adult, and sometimes we never find this out. It's okay.
And another thing, we become products of our environment, like you say, like what we've seen around us our entire life, what we've been taught, like that sticks with us, whether or not we think it has an impact. It has a direct impact. And most people are like, nah, but you can change. Yeah, you can change. And that's what I said. It matters that if you're open to changing your way of thinking.
Facts. If you're open to change, that's such a big thing. It comes back to that being open-minded. You have to be okay and know, like, hey, let's.
And it's a responsibility too, to be open-minded, because it's like you also can't put like that fugazi stuff out there in the world. Like, you need to make sure your facts are where they are, because that's where we like to base things. Like, there's logical people that are going to use logic and reasoning for everything, and then there's emotional people that are just going to throw logic out the window and act based off rational decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, like I said, it's important to just get out there. Like, honestly, I like uncomfortable situations where like people are like, they're okay. I'm gonna give you another example. Like, sometimes I go out places and people are having a discussion, or like somebody does something and I find it rude. I'm like, hey, like, what's this? And they like blow up on me and they're like, oh, what's this? You're just a kid. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not gonna get mad. I'm not gonna escalate this. In fact, I'd rather have a conversation about this. Like, why are we even having this escalation? I'm just saying, hey, I don't think that was right. And because I said, hey,
where did I go? Where do you feel like I offended you?
Yeah, and if I did, I mean, I'm sorry, I was not my intention, but I'm also going to stand my ground. And for me, it's like people have like I call it flipping the switch, you know? People go 0 to 100 really quick. And I feel like there are so many times where I've seen that happen, and I'm like, dude, like this could have been avoided.
It's
like,
true.
Very true. And I've really been like listening to a lot of Alan Watts lectures, and one thing that he kind of really says is take a step back for a second. Instead of being the one that's talking, be an observer for a minute.
Observer. It goes a long way, especially for like people like us, where we're more on the quiet side, we're more on the shy side, because we sometimes we get so nervous. We're able to pick up on so many things because we're so quiet, we're so observant. And being observant, it makes a big difference. You can see what works, what doesn't work. You learn from other people's mistakes, and you don't have to go through those issues.
And then here's the thing, because there's always a balance. You can't be too observant, because then you're quiet all the time, and people feel like they're gonna have that leverage over you. Because you're a shy guy. Hey, I could step on you, and that's why I feel like it's important to state your boundaries, state your opinion, but also at the same time be respectful of others. Because man, like I said, I go in public sometimes and I hear debates and I'm like, dude, this world, man, we're a mad world. Why can't we just be happy? Why can't we hug everybody?
Look at the 2026? No, 2016 was the first election with Trump. 2020 was the election between Biden and Trump. Look how chaotic their political debates were. Not trying to get political, but look at how childish they were. They didn't even let each other speak. So what makes, if our future leaders are not showing the example of listening, of speaking, why should we do that? Why should we be able to do that when they're doing it? No, we can't be hypocrites, you know?
Yeah. Another thing I think is pretty crucial to think about is, well, we elect these officials. So I think we're partially responsible, because these are the people we've chosen to represent us. So I think we should even look at I like to look at the root of the problem. Like, obviously we see there's an issue, but now let's take this a little, because let's take a step back. Let's really look at the root of the problem. I think it's us. Now I don't know why within the last, I'm only gonna say I'm 19, so I'm just gonna tell you this. In the last 10 years, like, you know, a lot of crazy stuff's happening. We have people that are just walking around, honestly, going off to school shootings. That's crazy. I honestly thought that should not even be, it shouldn't even be a thing at this point.
You mentioned school shootings. I know that's so many things we can talk about that, but thinking with perspective and taking action. This is a hot take. This is something I'm picking up over the years. Talking about political elections, we pick these people. Would you say a good part of the reason it's not so much government? Yes, government plays a big part on gun control. Would you say, though, as teachers, as human beings, we have not so much a responsibility, but we have this option to reach out to these individuals? Because a lot of these people who go shooting, they're hurt. There's something that triggered them to pull the trigger, you know?
Yeah, and there's a lot of cases. I can't bring up specifics. I don't know them off the top. I'd have to look them up right now.
Right.
Where teachers have, like, they stopped somebody in the act. And it's like, for real, like, some of these people are like suicidal, they're, you know, depressed, and it's like there's a lot of factors contributing to this, or they're angry, or I mean, and then again, there's just some people that are evil sons of guns. They just have no regard for human life.
True.
Yeah,
and I feel like that's what government comes into play, because no matter what we as human beings can do, we can say we at least made the attempt. But at the same time, right now, ignoring the effects that these kids are angry, these kids are frustrated, these kids on medication, what are we as individuals doing to prevent this? We can't just keep on pointing the fingers at the government not doing a good job. Yes, the government's not doing the best job, but what are we doing? Are we doing anything better?
To be honest, you know, supposedly we have treatment centers where we can send, but it's like sending people to a nut house doesn't necessarily cure them. All it really does is med them up even more and sedates them. Like, I'd say I have personal family members that have gone through the system, and they tell me, and I'm like, wow, that's not really helping the issue, is it?
It goes back to that environment, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, everybody's situation is different. There are different push and pull factors. And here's a big one. People say, "Oh, just more gun control." I'm like, okay, here's where that's a double-edged blade. You make it harder to get legally. Perfect, you know? I think it should not be easy to get a weapon. But here's the thing. You make it an illicit item, there's gonna be a need for it. You know, there's gonna be a huge demand, which makes it more profitable. So the more restricted it gets, the more these illegal gun dealers are going to keep doing what they're going to be doing, and they're going to make more money because more people are going to want them, especially if they start banning them. Exactly, and it's like they're just kind of adding fuel to the flame, in my opinion.
It's like the abolition of alcohol, the ban of alcohol.
Yeah, prohibition. Dude, prohibition gave way to the mafias to just like run through this place, and they made a killing. And it's like, that's the thing, it's like, you can't get rid of something like that. I feel like, I'm going to say, I think everybody has the right to carry a firearm, but I also think there's a responsibility to be carried. Because if you are bringing your firearm,
consequences, yeah,
it's like, if you can have a firearm, especially if you do it legally, it's like, you can have it for your reasons. I understand some people live in sketchier areas. I did for a while. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and put this on record. I actually got jumped twice when I was in LA, going to school, like on my way. And it's like, that's the real world. Stuff like that happens, and it's like, obviously I was a kid then, but it's like, and that's where you're like, hey, maybe I could have defended myself, but at the same time you're like, well, the cost of defending myself would possibly be me hurting someone, and honestly I would really not like to hurt somebody. That's like a last resort, and that's what I feel like it should come down to, a last resort kind of thing.
Very true. And you kind of made me think of something. So transitioning from that, I know I probably shouldn't, but we talk about this. We're in a first world country, mind you. So all these things we're going through. This is a really interesting question. I'm going to bring up a little bit of controversy.
I'm up for it. Let's do it.
Would you say we are being dramatic, or are we being too soft with this? Because if you go to third world countries, it's, how would you say? I've never been in a third world country, so I can't really argue. But at the same time, these people aren't arguing about things like that we're talking about.
You know what I think it is? It's the suppression of information. You go to a third world country, stuff like that probably happens, but you're not going to hear about it on the news. You're not going to hear about it on television, because a lot of the times you have corrupt governments, you have organized crime groups, and you have also just the press in general, just suppressing the news. And over here, it's like, yeah, we have the ability to say and get all these things out. And that's what happens here. Like, I'm going to bring up something, and it's a little bit kind of relevant. It's like the whole Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing. God, that turned into a show. And that's like, we were being dramatic. Like, what? Excuse me. Like, there are really more important things to be putting on TV and to be spreading across the world. And we don't do that. Instead, we focus on some bullshit case. It has, like, obviously it matters in the sense that somebody's livelihood, but it's like, there really are more important things at hand. And as a first world country that has that freedom, I think we should express it in a different way than.
Perfect example. Sorry to cut you off. The slap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was there for like a week.
That popped up around the same time. Well, obviously Ukraine was already in war, but things were getting worse in Ukraine. Government was getting worse in the United States. Mm-hmm. What were we focusing on, though?
Yeah. Was it the Grammys or something like that? Was that what it was?
I don't remember.
But yeah, like, you're right, and that's what I'm saying. It's like, we have that ability compared to these third world countries, and yet we choose to, like, honestly act like children about it. And I'm not gonna lie, there's a lot of outlets out there that are trying to put the truth out there.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also so many, like I said, that are just suppressing it, and it's like, what's that doing for us?
Very true.
Really?
And we are fortunate enough to not be in communist countries where we're not even able to do stuff like this. We had to follow very extremely strict guidelines.
You know what? I'm glad you mentioned that, because there's something, and this is again controversial for some people. I'm not going to state my opinions on it, but I'm just going to say, I was actually watching a Nelk Boys podcast. Now, don't mean to give them any like clout, and it got taken down within 30 minutes or something like that of it going up. And so they were interviewing Trump. And Trump said openly, and I was watching, he was like, hey, by the way, are you prepared for them to take this down and take your podcast down? Are you prepared for this? And dude, literally it happened. And he's like, that just goes to show you that like people that anything associated with me is probably gonna get taken down, censored, whatever. And I'm like, that's fucking crazy. There is no way that actually happened.
The fact that our supposedly strongest individual in America, the president, gets banned.
Well, ex-president at the time, yeah.
Gets banned on Twitter. Granted, yes, he did not handle that correctly.
Sorry about that. A little thing come up.
You're good. That's just really confused me. Yes, I'm not pro-Trump, but at the same time, I'm not against Trump. There's so many things he's done well. There's so many things he's done wrong. But the fact that we taken the right for him to speak on a social media platform.
Dude, yeah, we should. Honestly, I would have slammed you too. I would have been like, hey, what the hell is this? This is big.
This is someone who was supposed to look up, well, not look up to, but respect. And it kind of goes through with this new generation. Granted, I love these people. I'm working with them. At the same time, though, where is that respect? Where is that, not honor, but authority? The society we are promoting, what would you say? I'm not too sure of the correct word. I'm definitely bashing on
what?
this.
I'm gonna go ahead and say this on a loose term. I think we're promoting a form of corruption.
Anarchy, would you say? Or we're not there yet?
We're getting there. I feel like if this stuff continues the way we're headed in like 10 years, something big's gonna happen. We've already had these scares in LA with the riots. They were looting stores. And I'm like, and it's crazy. My mom talks to me about when she was here in LA during the Rodney King. And then she was literally like, she was in the heart of it. And she's like, that was scary for me. And especially being like a woman on the bus at like 4 or 5 in the morning, she's like, dude, this stuff was like, this is real. And this could happen today. And it's already kind of happened a few times. Same thing with, I'm going to bring it up too. Black Lives Matter protests, like, these things happen. And it's like, dude, I'm kind of scared because we're in LA, man. We're in the hot spot. We're in the melting pot, you know?
We're in the mix.
Yeah, we're definitely in the mix, dude. And it keeps getting stirred. It just keeps getting stirred. It's crazy. And you know what, another thing? We like to think that we're very like welcoming. It's like, I think we're almost as exclusive as we've ever been.
It's true. We become hypocrites.
And here's the thing. And I'm gonna say this: we don't even identify as, I feel like, as fucking humans anymore. We'd rather find our own groups and we isolate ourselves and we stick with them. And it's like, what happened to just being people on this earth, just roaming this place? It's like we're almost like creating our own little, like, not to say gangs, that's a loose term to use.
Yeah.
It's like we're creating our little groups, and we just stick with them. And it's like we might, and it's like we have our separates, and we have our like-minded individuals, and then we have artists that are different-minded individuals. And it's like that's creating more division. And I thought by now we would have done something more to create more unity in the world. We just haven't. We haven't been going in that direction, unfortunately.
Fortunately not. With that being said, I know we want to continue this conversation, though our time is up. So thank you guys for watching. This is pretty in-depth from nightly discussion, scriptless, more rants.
You know what? I have one last thing to say.
Go for it.
This is for everybody listening. I want you guys to challenge, just take a step back. Like I said, take a step back for a minute when somebody is saying something and challenge yourself to not say anything. Just challenge yourself to really open up and hear them. And then, in your head, really think, hey, okay, let me apply this to what I know to be true. And if there's a common ground, perfect. And if there's not, then you know what? Keep your point of view. But like I said, be respectful about it. And trust me, life's going to work out your way. People are just like, okay, that's fine. You don't agree with me. And I respect that. And now we don't have these escalations. And we're a little happier.
It's something new.
Yeah. Got to break the norm.
Break the norm, break the grounds, do something new, pass the smile, stay safe. PSA, pass the smile, stay safe, always be awesome. I know I said pass the smile like 3 times, but That's what you got to do nowadays in this crazy world. Again, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.